Commander Introduction Line. These are all the commanders who appeared in this historical event, along with the time, date, and location of their involvement. Commander List. General George S. Patton, United States Army, commanding U.S. Third Army, active near Metz, France, November 14, 1944, overseeing infantry and armor coordination. Lieutenant General Omar Bradley, United States Army, commanding 1st U.S. Army, 14 to 15 November 1944, coordinating artillery and support units. General der Panzertruppe Otto von Manschenfeld, German Wehrmacht, 7th Panzer Division, 14 to 16 November 1944, defending Metz sector. Colonel John K. Waters, United States Army, 2nd Infantry Division, November 14, 1944, leading frontline machine gun detachments. Major General Friedrich Schultz, German Wehrmacht, XXX Corps, 14 to 15 November 1944, supervising defensive machine gun placements and infantry countermeasures. Time, 8 o'clock hours. Date, November 14, 1944. Location, Metz, France, northern approaches. Weather, overcast, intermittent rain, muddy terrain. Units involved, U.S. 2nd Infantry Division, U.S. 3rd Army Artillery, 7th Panzer Division, German XXX Corps. The morning fog hung low over the muddy fields outside Metz, obscuring German positions while U.S. infantry waited silently. Soldiers whispered among themselves, checking weapons, adjusting gear, and listening to the distant thrum of artillery. Sergeant Jenkins reminded the squad, "Keep close to the machine guns. Without them, we don't move." Private Thompson nodded, gripping his rifle tighter as the first rounds of daylight revealed jagged craters and damaged hedgerows. Lieutenant Waters scanned the field, noting the placement of his machine gun teams. Their overlapping arcs of fire were crucial. Any attempt to advance without them would be suicide. The tension was palpable, every man aware that survival hinged on support. By mid-morning, 9:15 hours, artillery shells thudded in the distance, shaking the ground and sending mud splattering across the trenches. Machine gun crews adjusted their sights while infantrymen crawled forward in short, coordinated bursts. Private Harrison peeked from behind a hedgerow, whispering to Thompson, "Without them, we wouldn't even reach the first ridge." Sergeant Jenkins fired a warning shot across a nearby open field to suppress a German observation point. Lieutenant Waters used hand signals to orchestrate fire patterns, creating corridors for the infantry. The soldiers understood the lethal synergy between suppressive fire and movement, and the psychological weight of knowing machine guns protected their advance. At 10 o'clock hours, rain began falling steadily, turning the fields into a quagmire. Every step required careful placement, and machine gun teams struggled to keep their weapons clean and operational. Lieutenant Waters moved among them, inspecting barrels and ammo belts, ensuring overlapping fields of fire remained uninterrupted. Private Thompson shivered, his wet clothes clinging as he crawled forward under cover. Sergeant Jenkins reminded him, "The Germans count on hesitation. Don't give it to them." From the ridge, bursts of German fire crackled, met instantly with controlled fire from U.S. machine guns. The coordinated suppression allowed infantry squads to close in safely, inch by inch, toward the entrenched enemy lines. By 10:45 hours, a sudden German counterattack forced soldiers to take cover in shallow craters. Private Harrison ducked behind a shell hole, observing machine gunners swivel and lay down continuous fire. Sergeant Jenkins shouted, "Hold the line, let the machine guns do the work." Lieutenant Waters relayed coordinates to nearby artillery observers to prevent flank exposure. Thompson noticed how the infantry's morale depended on the rhythm and intensity of supporting fire. The synergy was evident. When machine guns fired, the enemy hesitated. When they paused, danger surged. It became clear that any uncoordinated movement without covering fire was impossible and deadly. By 11:20 hours, the infantry began a cautious advance under heavy machine gun cover. Lieutenant Waters signaled forward, and squads shifted from cover to cover. Private Thompson glanced at the devastation around him, recognizing the weight of every machine gun bullet in shaping the battlefield. Sergeant Jenkins barked commands, correcting squad positions to maintain alignment with suppressive fire. Observers noted how German soldiers reacted hesitantly, afraid to expose themselves to continuous fire. Artillery shells punctuated the rhythm, but it was a methodical, overlapping machine gun fire that created the corridors of movement. The men moved as one, understanding the deadly necessity of coordinated support. At 12:05 hours, visibility dropped due to smoke from nearby artillery impacts. Lieutenant Waters adjusted firing angles to cover blind spots, while Sergeant Jenkins led Thompson and other riflemen across a shallow valley. The German defensive positions were reinforced with barbed wire and mines, yet machine gun suppression allowed the squads to navigate these hazards. Private Harrison whispered, "I can't imagine advancing without this fire," highlighting a lesson every soldier had learned. Survival depended on the unwavering protection of machine guns. Coordination, timing, and discipline dictated the pace and safety of infantry movements across the battlefield. By 12:40 hours, the infantry reached a partially destroyed farm serving as a temporary rally point. Lieutenant Waters instructed soldiers to reload, check weapons, and coordinate next movements with the machine gun teams. Sergeant Jenkins reminded the squad of the psychological effect on the enemy. Continuous fire forced hesitation, reduced counterattacks, and allowed steady advances. Private Thompson noted the exhaustion and adrenaline mixing with fear, yet the protective rhythm of machine gun fire inspired confidence. Observers from the ridge reported German units pulling back, wary of advancing into corridors of lethal suppression. The day's pattern reinforced that infantry could never risk forward movement without these critical firepower anchors. By 13:15 hours, German defenders attempted a flanking maneuver along a nearby wooded area. Lieutenant Waters and his machine gun teams quickly recalibrated fields of fire to intercept, while infantry held positions and returned aim fire. Sergeant Jenkins communicated with forward observers to prevent gaps in coverage. Private Harrison realized the machine gun's role extended beyond simple suppression. They dictated enemy movement, created psychological pressure, and enabled American squads to maneuver strategically. As rain and smoke mingled, the importance of coordinated defense and supporting fire became undeniable. Without them, even a determined infantry squad would falter. At 13:50 hours, the infantry reached the first ridge entirely under cover, their advance largely unopposed due to the effective machine gun support. Lieutenant Waters congratulated squads, emphasizing that the measured, coordinated use of suppressive fire had prevented unnecessary casualties. Private Thompson reflected on how tactical patience, preparation, and reliance on teamwork enabled the advance. Sergeant Jenkins highlighted the operational lesson. Infantry's forward movement depended entirely on supporting arms, demonstrating the integration of firepower and maneuver. The soldiers understood that, beyond courage, it was planning, coordination, and the lethal rhythm of machine gun support that defined survival in combat. By 14:25 hours, the ridge was secured, with infantry and machine gun teams holding positions while artillery observers noted remaining threats. Lieutenant Waters organized small patrols to assess enemy positions, ensuring no immediate counterattack would catch the soldiers exposed. Private Harrison observed how well-synchronized firepower had forced enemy hesitation and retreat. Sergeant Jenkins emphasized discipline, vigilance, and the lethal interdependence of infantry and machine guns. The day's engagements reinforced a clear truth. American squads could not advance safely without the consistent, overlapping protection of machine gun teams. Coordination, precision, and unwavering support had dictated survival and battlefield success. The afternoon mist clung to the battlefield as Lieutenant Waters coordinated with forward observers to identify remaining German positions. Machine gun teams adjusted firing angles to cover any exposed terrain. Private Harrison and his squad moved carefully through the mud, crawling behind hedgerows and shattered stone walls. Sergeant Jenkins reminded them, "Every advance is a gamble, but our machine guns tip the odds in our favor." The sound of distant artillery punctuated bursts of automatic fire, each shot suppressing enemy attempts to regroup. Thompson glanced at the ridge, noting the precision of fire that allowed infantry to inch forward, learning firsthand why moving without support would be suicide. At 15:10 hours, a German sniper fired from a ruined barn, forcing the squad to seek cover. Lieutenant Waters signaled machine gun crews to suppress the structure while scouts approached. Private Harrison whispered, "It's terrifying, but we move as one." Sergeant Jenkins led the team forward, timing movement with controlled bursts of fire. Shells splashed nearby, sending mud flying and adding to the sensory chaos. Soldiers were soaked, exhausted, yet alert. Observers noted that the coordination of machine guns not only protected the infantry, but dictated the enemy's reactions, illustrating the delicate balance of firepower and movement in modern warfare. By 1545 hours, the infantry reached a small orchard providing temporary concealment. Lieutenant Waters scanned the field for potential enemy reinforcements while machine gun teams covered key exit points. Private Thompson adjusted his grip on his rifle, taking a moment to breathe. Sergeant Jenkins reminded the squad to conserve ammunition, emphasizing disciplined bursts over panic. "One careless shot can expose us," he said. The soldiers relied on the rhythm of supporting fire, knowing it dictated not only survival but momentum. They observed German units hesitating behind trees and barricades, unsure whether to advance or retreat under the relentless suppressive fire. The orchard became a strategic pause, vital for regrouping and planning the next move. At 16:20 hours, Thompson noticed a fellow soldier struggling through mud near a destroyed fence. Sergeant Jenkins called over machine gun crew to provide cover, allowing the infantrymen to regroup safely. Lieutenant Waters adjusted trajectories to suppress a nearby farmhouse suspected of housing enemy snipers. Private Harrison marveled at how machine gun fire shaped enemy behavior and morale, making them hesitate, retreat, or miscalculate. The coordination was flawless. The soldiers' lives depended on it. Amid exhaustion and fear, a subtle reminder crept into Thompson's mind: the importance of preparation and trust in their weapons and comrades. Without this synchrony, even the most determined infantry would falter. By 1655 hours, a burst of German artillery exploded near the forward line, forcing a momentary halt. Lieutenant Waters relayed fire adjustments while Sergeant Jenkins ensured that machine gun coverage remained continuous. Thompson crawled behind a crater, observing how suppressive fire dictated every movement. Harrison checked his ammo and nodded to his sergeant, understanding their survival relied on precise timing and teamwork. The interplay of suppression, advance, and observation highlighted the deadly ballet of modern warfare. The soldiers reflected briefly on how machine guns did more than fire. They dictated strategy, shaped terrain, and protected life, becoming the silent heartbeat of infantry operations on this critical front. At 17:30 hours, sunlight struggled through clouds, casting long shadows over the battlefield. Machine gun crews shifted positions to cover a newly exposed flank, while Lieutenant Waters directed squads forward. Thompson advanced, covering small bursts between hedgerows, feeling the rhythm of the guns dictate his pace. Sergeant Jenkins reminded him of their purpose. Every man's advance depended on this synchronized fire. Private Harrison, moving beside him, glanced at the distant ridge and saw German soldiers hesitating under the relentless coverage. The tactical lesson was clear. Courage alone would not suffice. Precision, discipline, and integrated firepower ensured the infantry could survive and advance. By 1800 hours, a German counterattack emerged along the northern edge of the orchard. Lieutenant Waters immediately ordered suppressive fire on the flanking units, enabling the infantry to hold their positions. Sergeant Jenkins coordinated with nearby squads, issuing commands through shouted phrases and hand signals. Thompson observed the effectiveness of overlapping machine gun fire in controlling enemy movement. Private Harrison ducked under incoming fire, realizing that the careful integration of suppressive fire, observation, and small unit tactics dictated the battlefield outcome. The enemy advanced only to falter under relentless bullets, reinforcing the lesson that infantry advancement was inseparable from machine gun support. At 1835 hours, the American squads managed to push forward to a partially destroyed barn near the orchard's edge. Lieutenant Waters checked each machine gun position, ensuring no sector lacked coverage. Sergeant Jenkins led a squad through shattered debris while maintaining alignment with suppression lines. Thompson marveled at how each step forward required a combination of courage, coordination, and trust in firepower. Harrison remarked quietly, "Without these guns, we'd never make it." Their small victories reflected larger operational success, showing that the synchronization of supporting fire and infantry movement was not optional but essential for survival and progress. By 1910 hours, the battlefield fell into a tense lull as dusk approached. German fire became sporadic, indicating exhaustion and uncertainty. Lieutenant Waters surveyed the terrain and noted small pockets of resistance, planning night operations carefully. Sergeant Jenkins reminded the squad that their survival depended on discipline and timing, and that even in the twilight, machine guns dictated where infantry could safely move. Private Thompson checked ammo belts, realizing how each shot contributed to both protection and psychological pressure. The men understood that their coordinated firepower had forced enemy hesitation and had shaped the tactical flow of the entire engagement. As night settled at 1945 hours, the infantry secured the orchard and prepared defensive positions. Lieutenant Waters commended the squads, noting that their careful use of machine gun support had minimized casualties and forced enemy withdrawal. Sergeant Jenkins quietly reminded soldiers to maintain vigilance, as the night could bring renewed attacks. Private Harrison reflected on the rhythm of coordinated fire and movement, understanding why infantry could never advance without it. Thompson silently acknowledged that every step, every suppression line, and every overlapping field of fire was life-saving. The day's operations emphasized discipline, coordination, and the central role of machine gun support in achieving tactical success. Dawn on November 15th, 1944 brought a pale light over Metz, revealing the damaged landscape and lingering fog. Infantry squads moved cautiously, aware of enemy artillery still active in distant sectors. Lieutenant Waters inspected positions, ensuring machine guns remained operational, while Sergeant Jenkins reminded his men of proper spacing and cover. Private Harrison observed German positions hesitating behind shattered walls, unsure whether to press forward under the American firepower umbrella. Thompson noticed the psychological effect of suppression. The enemy was constantly calculating risk, unwilling to advance into lethal fire lanes. The day's lessons underscore the strategy, morale, and firepower were deeply intertwined. By 7:30 hours, forward patrols encountered isolated enemy units attempting minor counterattacks. Lieutenant Waters coordinated supporting fire to suppress these movements while infantry advanced methodically. Sergeant Jenkins signaled squads to maintain tight formation, timing movements with machine gun bursts. Thompson noted how previous engagements had instilled caution and hesitation in German troops. Private Harrison realized that small tactical decisions, aligned with overarching fire support, shaped survival and operational momentum. Observers recorded how suppressive fire forced the enemy to retreat or miscalculate, illustrating why advancing without coordinated firepower had always been considered suicidal in these operations. At 8:15 hours, the squads approached a partially destroyed bridge spanning a muddy river. Lieutenant Waters ordered overlapping machine gun coverage on likely enemy approaches, enabling squads to advance cautiously. Sergeant Jenkins reminded Thompson and Harrison to stay low and move in rhythm with supporting fire. The psychological impact of machine gun suppression on German defenders became apparent as they hesitated to fire, knowing the cost of exposure. Private Harrison reflected on the interplay of discipline, timing, and tactical awareness. Each movement was deliberate, calculated, and dependent on supporting fire, emphasizing the central lesson of the battle. Infantry could not safely advance without machine gun coordination. By 9 o'clock hours, Lieutenant Waters detected movement from a German patrol attempting reconnaissance near a ruined mill. He immediately instructed machine gun crews to sweep the area with precise bursts, allowing infantry to flank safely. Sergeant Jenkins moved squads forward, emphasizing slow, controlled advances to maintain cover. Thompson observed how suppression dictated not only movement but enemy perception, keeping opposition tentative and reactive. Private Harrison remarked quietly, "Every gun counts," noting the interdependence of firepower and survival. The morning's actions reinforced the tactical truth that individual courage was insufficient without organized, overlapping support for machine guns to protect and guide infantry maneuvers. At 9:45 hours, the infantry reached a partially cleared village edge, encountering sporadic sniper fire. Lieutenant Waters coordinated fire to suppress known threats, while Sergeant Jenkins directed squads along safer routes. Thompson noted the precise timing required to move under cover, understanding that one misstep could be fatal. Private Harrison acknowledged how the rhythm of machine gun support instilled confidence, dictating safe movement and shaping the battlefield. Observers recorded that German forces increasingly avoided exposure under relentless suppression. The integration of firepower, coordination, and tactical patience became the defining element in enabling infantry occupy and secure contested areas without excessive casualties. By 10:30 hours, a lull in enemy fire allowed soldiers to assess the battlefield. Lieutenant Waters confirmed that all sectors remained covered, while Sergeant Jenkins briefed squads on next objectives. Thompson checked his rifle, while Private Harrison maintained his position near a machine gun nest. The tactical principle was clear. Every advance relied on suppressive fire, which dictated momentum, morale, and survival. Observing the enemy hesitate and withdraw reinforced the psychological impact of coordinated firepower. Soldiers reflected on lessons learned. Calculated movement, timing, and reliance on supporting arms were essential to infantry success, forming the backbone of tactical doctrine in this engagement. At 11:15 hours, German resistance concentrated near a small hill, attempting to delay the American advance. Lieutenant Waters ordered overlapping machine gun coverage to dominate likely avenues of approach. Sergeant Jenkins guided squads into firing lanes, while Thompson and Harrison advanced cautiously, relying on suppression to mass exposure. Observers noted enemy hesitation and increasing retreat. The tactical lesson was unmistakable. Coordinated machine gun fire controlled both the battlefield and enemy perception. Without it, infantry risked being annihilated. Soldiers understood that their survival and operational effectiveness were inseparable from this methodical, disciplined integration of firepower and maneuver. By 12 o'clock hours, the hill was cleared of organized enemy resistance. Lieutenant Waters organized offensive positions, ensuring that machine gun coverage remained continuous to prevent counterattacks. Sergeant Jenkins reinforced morale, emphasizing discipline and cohesion. Thompson reflected on the day's movements, acknowledging how vital overlapping fields of fire had been. Private Harrison observed the psychological toll on retreating German troops, reinforcing lessons about firepower's role beyond killing. It shaped enemy behavior and dictated operational tempo. Commanders documented the efficacy of synchronized support, emphasizing that infantry advances were impossible without carefully coordinated machine gun coverage. At 12:45 hours, patrols secured the village outskirts, identifying and neutralizing scattered resistance. Lieutenant Waters reported to higher command, highlighting tactical success achieved through integration of suppressive fire, infantry movement, and observation. Sergeant Jenkins debriefed squads on lessons learned. Timing, precision, and coordination determined survival. Thompson and Harrison observed firsthand how supporting fire created corridors of movement, forced enemy hesitation, and enabled operational objectives to be met with minimal casualties. The day's engagements demonstrated a fundamental truth of modern combat. Infantry cannot advance safely without synchronized fire support. By 13:30 hours, the Americans consolidated positions, prepared for the next phase of operations. Lieutenant Waters reflected on the disciplined use of firepower, and Sergeant Jenkins noted the value of coordination and timing in minimizing casualties. Thompson and Harrison surveyed the battlefield, noting the lasting psychological and tactical impact of machine gun support on enemy forces. Observers confirmed that the principles applied here, coordination, suppression, and discipline, would inform future operations. The final reflection for the audience is clear. The history presented is authentic, and these events underscore the lethal, strategic necessity of integrated firepower in World War II infantry operations, leaving lessons that resonate beyond the battlefield.